why not sit back, relax, and take things easy like a Sunday morn. I'm your host, Shane Lockwood, and today is the 22nd of July 2019, and this is episode 79. Can you believe it? 79 whole episodes. Excuse me. That's a lot of episodes. I want to welcome everybody who is listening to this for the very first time, and I want to welcome back everybody who is a regular listener to the show. It's been a while since I've done a podcast, and the last two episodes were basically excuses for not doing the episode before and all that sort of stuff, and the delays and things in between. And I've been through yet another emotional and social and physical and financial roller coaster in between episodes once again. I was on a month-long work cover break from work, and then I went back to work, and then I started a comedy course called the School of Hard Knock Knocks. And during the course, I was being bullied at work, so I took a couple of days off, and then I wasn't called back into work for a couple of weeks, and then I asked what's going on. I got a few shifts, and then I've been off work for about another 3 weeks while they sort out what it is that they were going on about. They had a toolbox meeting, and it looks like it was a chance for everybody just to have a grievance about me, and I don't know. I'll have to ring up my employer tomorrow, find out what's going on, or whether I should just move on to bigger and better things. The comedy course was called the School of Hard Knock Knocks, and it was run by a friend of mine by the name of Steve Davis, and he roped in Glenn Nicholas to teach the course. And if it wasn't for Glenn Nicholas, I wouldn't have done the course at all. I don't think I would have had the confidence in myself to overcome a lot of my social and public speaking phobias and things like that. I think a lot of people have those sorts of phobias dealing with the public. But Glenn Nicholas was absolutely fantastic. For those of you who don't know who Glenn Nicholas was or is, he was a comedian who started two shows. One was his own self-titled TV show called The Glenn Nicholas Show, and the other one was called The Big Gig, and it was a showcase of comedians and performers and artists and things like that, where they could do their own little stand-up stuff, and it launched the careers of quite a few people, from Flacco to the Doug Anthony All-Stars to Gene Kitson, and like a myriad of comedians and stars who went through the show. It was fantastic. And one of the highlights of my life will always be getting to tell Glenn Nicholas that, you know, I was a fan of the show, but also, and he was rather stony-faced when I said that, but when I said that the whole school watched the show, he broke into a smile. And I think he's had a very hard life, even though he's a performer, and you think, well, he's had money and stuff like that. What he did was he reached a point in his career where there's an internal voice that questions everything, right? And it's a darker, negative voice. And he heard it clear as day in his own head say, "Who are you? Who do you think you are to be on stage?" And he, stupidly, he listened to that voice and withdrew from doing stand-up comedy, and instead went into directing plays and things like that behind the scenes, because he's actually an introvert, and for him to be out in the open in dealing with people is actually like a big ask and a big struggle for him. The other thing was he went through a rather messy divorce and things like that, which puts a dampener on things, and then he had to raise his daughters by himself, which is never a good thing. But he's back. He's got a girlfriend now, and he's, I think, 66 years old at the time of recording this, and so he's dealing with ageism as well within the comedy sphere, but he's trying to work his way back through the comedy circles and things like that. When you hear a comedian talk about having to do the rounds or pay their dues, so to speak, what they're doing is they're actually going to all the little comedy clubs, and they're usually just pubs that have got a room with like seating for maybe 30 people, 10, 20, 30 people, and there's a stage with the microphone set up and speakers and that sort of thing. And they'll go from pub to pub to pub and work on material and presenting material and trying to find the best material. And they're just sifting through the stuff that works, things that get a laugh, things that don't get a laugh. And the best stuff very often will get put into like a Netflix special. So that's what Ricky Gervais does. Ricky Gervais will have a set where he will go through, he'll do like 20 or 30 nights worth of comedy. And then, he goes, okay, well, that joke failed like 3 or 4 times, so I won't use that one again. He'll come up with another joke and just keep going and going until he's got like a solid hour where he thinks that people are going to be laughing in stitches from start to finish. And then he goes to Netflix and says, I've got a thing that I'd like to record, and therefore he makes multi-million-dollar Netflix specials and things like that. The course itself teaches the structure of comedy and basically jokes. The other thing was that Glenn Nicholas teaches is stagecraft. And I think a lot of comedians, when they do courses like this, they don't get the proper stagecraft training and things like that, and it sort of shows. I wanted to highlight the fact that the Patreon supporters of this particular podcast will have access to my stand-up as an audio, my graduation. At the end of the course, when you go to graduate, your graduation ceremony is actually a stand-up gig and a presentation of a certificate of achievement. So that's what I've got. And so stagecraft, anyway, I'm going to forget if I don't pause it now. No, I won't pause it. I'll remember. I'll force myself to remember. So you've got stagecraft, you've got joke structures, you've got how to write comedy, how to stand, how to speak in a certain way, how to handle hecklers and those sorts of things. But there's also a whole heap of advice and things that Glenn Nicholas tailored to each of us, which was priceless, right? Now, the course itself is fairly expensive. It's not a cheap thing, but it's 5 days of fairly intense training. It's emotionally intense because people who have social anxiety disorders or public speaking issues, like myself, are often attacked by their own mind. So the idea of having to step on stage, do a comedy routine, and the fear that maybe, just maybe, these people either won't laugh at the jokes, you'll just get a deadpan silence throughout the audience, or you will get like ridicule. Oh, that was rubbish, mate, or boos and all that sort of stuff. Now, with the graduation ceremony is, what do you call it? Like a warmed up audience already, right? So they're primed for comedy, and we're told at the beginning, don't boo, don't do whatever, don't heckle, and just laugh when you need to laugh and or when you want to laugh and all that sort of stuff. So you can actually see what jokes trigger a laugh and which ones don't and things like that. I made the mistake of having the set. What they call a set is the list of jokes when you go on stage. And I had a printed copy in my pocket when I went on stage, and I used it as a crutch because I went through and I timed myself. I was on stage for about 25 seconds before I needed to pull out the piece of paper with the rest of the set on it. So then from that point, I started reading off the page, and it wasn't as good as what it could have been. But everybody loved what I did, and I've shared the footage with Patreon supporters and on Facebook. And the Patreon supporters get a cleaned up version of the performance. So a lot of the nervousness and stuff is cut out. I was on stage for about 7 minutes, and you've got no concept of time when you're on stage in front of a crowd. But you take a mental check of the time that you start, and then the time that when you get off the stage, you check the time. It's like, oh, that was 7 minutes. And I ended up getting a gig. I've got a gig coming up. It's a 3-minute set, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got to modify the stuff that I've got now, and it's at the Cranker Comedy Night on Tuesday, the August the 6th of 2019, and it'd be really, really good. So, but there are people called bookers. Bookers are people that they book the acts. So I've made friends with a few of them, and then started offering me open mic nights and things like that, where I can get up and practice and things like that. So it's something that I'm really, really afraid of, really nervous, but everybody gets nervous. The weird thing is, right, when you start the comedy course, you have to have 2 minutes of comedy material, or it doesn't have to be funny, it just has to be material, right? And Glenn Nicholas is an absolute legend at turning any sort of piece of text into comedy and finding jokes within the comedy and things like that, or within the text, and turning it into like a comedy piece. So the reason that my set was so long was because I was telling a story. It ended up being a knock-knock joke, but within the story itself. It's very difficult to explain if you haven't seen my routine. But I thought it was awesome. What else is going on? So I've been out of work for a few weeks. So hopefully I'll get that sorted tomorrow and find out where I'm standing. I'm currently also doing a cleaning course. Oh, that's right. The cost of the course for the comedy course is, I paid $440 because that $40 was GST, but that was a concession rate, and I think the maximum is about $700 for 5 days of intense comedy training. And that's right. Everybody failed the second night to actually remember their sets because it's a psychological journey. For some reason, all of your fears and phobias and childhood nightmares come to the surface. And then you have to fight them off one by one. And it's a strange thing. And then you find out through Glenn Nicholas, because he's done this for years and years and years. And one of those things is that when a lot of people were children, they had to stand up in front of the whole school and give an announcement or some sort of thing. And a few of them had a fear of public speaking, not necessarily when they were kids, but for whatever happened, whatever reason, the thing that was supposed to say slipped their mind. So they've forgotten what they had to say. So immediately in front of the whole school, you've got ridicule, public ridicule. And that's what happened to me. And the strange thing was, I'd forgotten all of this stuff until I did the course. The course now, I can remember what I was supposed to say when I was in year 4 at a brand new school. And all I had to say was that we had Greek lessons on a Friday morning. Right? But it was one of those events when my mind went blank and I had to have a teacher say what I had to say. And I couldn't say it in front of all those people with their eyes staring at me and just burning into my soul. And I was only young. And a lot of people don't recover from that sort of stuff. And there's been other incidents where you get called up and you've got to write on the whiteboard, but you've got horrible handwriting. Or you can make a mistake and everyone's going, no, boo. And that's the sort of stuff that I've had to deal with. So I've just never bothered public speaking. I've avoided public speaking. I've avoided the limelight. And it's just something that I struggle with. So I've got this gig coming up. It's playing on my mind. It's only 3 minutes. Now, the thing about a 3-minute set is that if you watch a comedian, very often, like if they're experienced comedians, like the first 2 minutes, they might get a quick laugh when they first get on stage, but a lot of it is just them settling down, getting comfortable in front of the audience, working the audience up before they actually start even talking. There's a lot about body language and things like that that need to be learned. But the course goes over all of that. I had a very simplified and condensed version of that. But then in the hands of Glenn Nicholas, it was like amazing. But I think because I'm a rather reflective person anyway, I've started to dig out a lot of the barriers and things that were holding me back, and things like that. But here's an interesting question, actually. Do you think that I should go back into a working environment where I was being bullied? Now, it wasn't from the boss, it was from one of the supervisors. And I know that it was just a bit of pressure being applied by the boss to the supervisors. And there's the old thing of, oh, you're too slow. You're too slow. And I don't think it is that people are too slow. I think it's more that people just don't like other people. One of those things was that, and I need to get this off my chest, I hope you don't mind. It's my podcast, I can do what I like, really. But imagine someone 2 meters away from you, right? And, no, make it 3 or 4 meters. 4 meters, so it's good, right? Now, they're still within earshot, right? There's 2 people there. One of them is looking at their phone saying, oh, how do you spell Shane? Or whatever your name happens to be, right? Is it with an A-N-E or with an A-Y-N-E, right? Because with my name, there's a variation, right? I've never spelled it with a Y. I don't like the Y being in there. There's no need for it. It's just S-H-A-N-E, right? Now imagine that person saying that, right? And the guy through the phone is, oh, how do you spell my name? Okay. Then you hear the other guy say, oh, I hate that guy. And you think, what? Did I just hear that correctly? Are you talking about me? I'm hearing my name. And you say, oh, no, I don't like that guy. Then the other guy he looks up at me, the guy with the phone in his hand, saying, oh, so how do you spell your name? And I thought, you got to be kidding me, right? This guy just stood there and said, oh, no, I don't like him. Oh, I don't like him. Now, I get it. I'm not supposed to be everybody's friend, right? But the fact that you would say that in front of me, right? And then the next day they rode me hard, as in nothing I did was good enough. I was too slow, and I was missing spots, and this and that. You know, one person would tell you to do one thing, then they tell you to do another thing, and then you didn't do the first thing, and so on and so forth, right? So, should I go back into that environment? You know, or is that every work environment? Is that something that everybody has to deal with? And maybe I'm not being hard enough. Maybe I'm too soft. I don't know. I've got no way of gauging what you would consider workplace bullying and things like that. I had one woman in the second to last shift that I did while I was working there come up to me and say, you're really, why are you so slow? And then she said, how long have you been working here? And I said, a couple of months. She goes, no, no, we don't hire people who work as slow as you at our company and all this sort of stuff, right? And in my head, I'm thinking, you're not wearing a helmet. And now we're on a building site, right? They're building a hospital in the city. And I'm wearing full PPE, personal protection equipment, and she's not wearing a helmet. And she's telling me I'm working too slow. Whereas a single phone call from me to the boss about her would have got her kicked off the building site. So I don't get it. And then I find out, of course, that she's been with the company for nearly 10 years, so she's in good with the boss. She's the boss's favourite, you see. So you can't really ruffle feathers. And if she doesn't want me there, if they voted me, because they had a toolbox meeting the Monday after my last shift. On the Sunday before the Monday of the toolbox meeting, I get a text saying, sorry, there's no work for you tomorrow. Okay. Now that was 3 weeks ago. The job itself is casual, so if the boss wants you to come in, he'll send you a text message saying come in tomorrow, give you the location, and it's normally, because we're working on a hospital, it's normally just the hospital. Now, sometimes there are days where there are no work because we are behind tradespeople, right? So the people that are painting or building or installing electronics and trade, you got Sparkies and all sorts of air conditioning guys and all sorts of stuff. So we're working in and around them, right? These guys are awesome, right? And I don't have a problem with them. What happens is if they are delayed for a little bit, obviously the areas that they want clean can't be cleaned while they're working in them, right? So it can be on and off, right? But it's normally not off for 3 weeks in a row. The last time it was like this, it was for 3 weeks, and then I rang up the boss when I was going through like a lot of financial difficulties and all sorts of stuff, and I got a few shifts, and that was all good. And then all this other crap happened. But yeah, let me know in the comments or wherever, or through Facebook or whatever, what you think about that situation. Is it normal, like for environment, like do you have to deal with workplace drama and politics? Is workplace bullying a thing that you have to endure every day? So the purpose of this podcast, really, and this individual episode is not going to do that, but is to give you the tools that we need to basically survive. And one of those tools is to let go of everything that is causing us stress and anxieties and all sorts of dramas and things that we just don't need, other people's nonsense. And in some ways I do have to apologize for the people, to the people that listen to this regularly, hoping for that sort of thing, and I just haven't been able to deliver it because I'm going through this stuff myself. But the funny thing was that I walked past I think it's a psychologist institute or something or other, and it had nothing to do with Scientology, I promise you. And I saw a book in the window that said how to deal with tricky people before they end up destroying your life. And it's a book that I've started going through, but when I saw it, I just thought, that's the guy. This is a guy that decided that he didn't like me, wouldn't say hello or good morning to me. He was the one that said, Shane, I hate that guy, and was treating me really badly. And you think, hang on, I'm the one doing the work here, right? And of course, isn't it funny, all the supervisors, they can't see that they're not doing anything at all. They'll go up and down the elevators all the time, talking to bosses, negotiating with bosses what the work needs to be done, but they won't actually do the work themselves. But this book made me think of him, and I thought, yeah, I've got to do this because I've got to learn how to protect myself. So the next podcast will be about that particular book and what I learned about it. And yeah, so I hope everybody is at least somewhat relaxed. I know that I'm unfortunately complaining yet again. I've had a few people say that this podcast is just me complaining about stuff, but this is stuff that's happening to me, and I don't know, one, what's normal and how to handle these situations. Like, what would you do in these situations? That's why I talk about this stuff. What would you do in these situations? The other day on Facebook, I put up that I went and saw a dietitian and had a fantastic visit. I'd lost weight, like a good 2 or 3 kilos between visits, which is great. And my diet has changed, so I'm eating properly, smaller amounts of carbohydrates and not as much red meat, not as much fat, doing the right thing, right? And I'm exercising more. Things are going well. But I also mentioned that I'd run out of medication, and so my regular GP wasn't available until the next day. So I said, okay, can I go and see another doctor? I just need the prescription filled. Fine. So I go and see this other doctor who was in a really bad mood and decided to take it out on me. So she's saying, why are you on this medication? You're not supposed to be on this medication. And I just said that the endocrinologist said I should be on it. I'm not a doctor. I'm just following doctor's orders, right? So then she said, no, you should only be listening to your GP or a general practitioner rather than a specialist, right? She goes, you always go through the GP. The specialist only advises the GP, and the GP tells you what to take and what to do. Oh, okay. She goes, don't take this medication until after you've finished this other medication. I said, okay, fine. So then I asked for clarification. So what you're telling me is this, and this? And she goes, this, and this. Yes. Right. And then she said, you got that? Is your brain on? And I went, no, you've got that? Is your brain working? And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. Did you just say that to me? Now, maybe I'm exaggerating things. I don't know. Maybe I'm misinterpreting what she was saying. But from the feedback that I've been getting on Facebook is that everybody thought that she was rude. So I just don't know. I don't know. That's one of the things. I can't gauge what is normal and what is not. I can only gauge by how I feel in a situation and how I interpret things. And that to me was rather unprofessional and beyond the pale. But this year has been one of those years where it's just everybody's at me and everybody's attacking me, and I can't win. So I've had to look at the little victories, things like the comedy course. Oh, and I was attacked for doing that as well. This woman, I had to block her on Facebook because she completely misunderstood everything that I said. She was just nasty and hostile, and I won't even go into it, but wow, that was the thing. She counted up every time that I mentioned either Centrelink or welfare or, all of the just people not incompetence, right? It's people just not doing their job properly, not caring, and whatnot, right? And she used it against me. Now I was working at the time, but to say, oh well, you're unemployed, therefore I can attack you, or she thought that me doing a comedy course was rather frivolous. Or you choose to do a comedy course rather than working. Oh, you must be financially secure. And you think, no, I wasn't. I had enough money to pay for the course and to do the course and things like that. But that's something that I constantly weigh up. But oh well, this is probably not the most upbeat, podcast you'll hear today. But I think what I might do is just leave it there. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I just wanted to get this off my chest. I needed to get back into the podcasting saddle again, and I will do shorter episodes, and hopefully they'll be a lot funnier and a lot more positive from now on going forward. But thank you very much for listening, and I hope that today and the rest of the week is easy like a Sunday morn. Bye for now.